Jam down low, Steve Toiloy, Montel Williams with the ball down low, and A.J. Williams throws it down. We're all tied up.
They might not have passed this far back. Taylor off balance. Takes it in with 0.4 seconds left to go.
Welcome into FBA Weekly, hosted by Belly Up Sports Media. My name is Andy Sire. With me today is actually not AJ Johnson, but it is Gabriel Schrei. Gabriel, how are we doing this evening?
Hey, I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Well, what we're going to bring for you guys today is our weekly segment here of the Florida Basketball Association. So what we're going to actually be doing in this show is we're actually going to be joined by the broadcast team for the FBA here in a little bit. But while we get started for them, I wanted to talk to you and me, Gabriel, and we're just going to run through some of our feedback on the league so far. So what I want to start with is your thoughts on the season as it is as of today. You know, obviously we have our standings, which we'll get to in a second, but you know, this is an up and coming developing league. So just run me through your little thoughts on this Florida Basketball Association up to today, which is Memorial Day weekend. Happy Memorial Day, everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Andy, I'm excited about this league. This is a league that's been around for a few years. And for anyone that doesn't know, this has been specifically designed to become the choice destination for players that are looking to develop and continue their pro basketball career, but in the Sunshine State, and where better to do it. You know, there's not a ton of alternatives to the NBA and the G League, and there's a kind of a hole there for these minor basketball leagues. And this is one that's in a great regional area. It's in a great region. They're running the regional model throughout the state of Florida, and it's providing this great competitive platform with a low travel schedule that's going to give these players more time to devote towards skill development and becoming better pros. That's what's exciting about this league for me personally.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, the thing that you mentioned there is continued development. You know, the NBA, the G League, D League, G League, whichever letter of the alphabet they're choosing these days, obviously you're going to see people there that are on the cusp, right? They're on the cusp of making a roster, but there's still, and this goes with any sport out there, there's still so many guys out there and girls in other sports as well that just don't get the chance to make it because they might not get that shot that they need. They get one or two and then they don't get another one. So kudos to the FBA for coming around. And one thing I wanted to hint on real quick before we bring in the other fellas is the FBA has welcomed their first female team owner, Amy Rhodes of the Lakeland Royals. I want to first congratulate the FBA for this. This is a big move. I wish we didn't have to keep having these conversations about women, you know, being in these positions of power just with men. But tip of the cap, a salute to the FBA. Gabriel, your thoughts on this? To me, it seems like a really big move for this league.
I think it's a big step, and I think it's something that we're going to see continue to happen throughout this next decade as sports continue to change and the landscape becomes more comfortable and more friendly for everyone.
Absolutely. So obviously we wish Amy the best of luck, and, you know, we hope that the FBA continues to support and, you know, promote equal opportunities for, you know, all genders involved. And with that being said, okay, so this Florida Basketball Association, this FBA that we have right now. So we have a league here that consists of 7 teams, okay? Right now, the standings, there's a little bit of a difference between first and last place. We have the Pride at the top of the league. We have the Brevard, I'm sorry if I butchered that name, Bobcats at the bottom of the league. However, there is still a lot of season to play. So up to this point, with the Pride sitting at the top of the league, What have you noticed, Gabriel, in this early part of the FBA season?
Well, I think there's three teams that really have set themselves apart from the rest of the league to this point. The Pride, the Lakeland Royals, and the Palm Beach Titans have really just played their own brand of basketball. They've been really special on the floor. They've moved the ball really well, and they're dropping it into the twine from all over. So that success that they've had to this point has been very special for them. And I think they'll continue to have that success throughout the course of the season.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think one thing that we're gonna see in this league, and I hope we're gonna see for the remainder of the season to come, is which team is going to put both sides of the ball together the most consistent to get into the playoffs, make a run, and take home the FBA championship trophy. I know before we hopped on the show here, Gabriel, you were talking about our 2019 champions. And yes, it is 2022, but we wanted to reference this team. Okay. So give us a little bit of insight on what you see from this team that has experience in winning and is going to take that experience into this season and hopefully continue their winning ways.
Yeah, that's the Pride, and that's who's on top of the latest, the most up-to-date standings from the FBA, from the front office. And they've been really successful again this season, but they were the champions in 2019. I think they're one to watch, along with the Royals and the Titans. And there's just something I like about them. They move the ball around really well, and as I said just a moment ago, they're able to find the twine from both inside and outside on the floor.
Yep, absolutely. So continuing into this season's talk, as we were mentioning, the Pride are sitting atop the standings. I'd like to not harp, bad word choice, but I'd like to talk about really quick the Winter Park Storm and those Bobcats. Okay, we're seeing them on the Schneid right now at 0-4. Shout out to Chris Berman for the reference there. But being that it's early in the season, okay, we're only 3.5 games behind first place. So what do you think it's going to take for these teams sitting at the bottom of the league right now to make a run to hopefully catch up and maybe even overtake some of these teams sitting at the top?
The Storm, the Bobcats, they're going to have to play as a unit. One thing that's nice about a league like this is the level of the talent. The differential is never going to be that great. At least that's what you hope with a league like the Florida Basketball Association. So hopefully these teams can kind of come together, work on their playbook and the way they move around on the floor, and come up with something new and different to put a little more pressure on their opponents throughout the rest of the course of their schedule.
Yeah, I agree. And, I think you mentioned it, playing on both sides of the court, but even diving in a little bit deeper, it's going to be who's going to do that on the most consistent basis, right? So who's going to be the team that night in, night out comes in, plays good offense, plays good defense, and let's be honest, doesn't get tired. In these basketball games, you're running around for, 40 to 48 minutes. It's 94 feet. End to end on the court. That's a lot of running. That's miles that you're putting on your legs. So you have to make sure, exhaustion, hydration, all those factors. I'm a fitness guy. I'm a science nerd. Sorry for you folks getting a little nerdy right here, but that is something to take into consideration. I want to quickly shift gears, though, to the previous season that we had in 2021, okay, with the FBA. So we know we have the Pride sitting on top of the league right now, right? I'm going to point out a couple things here, and I want your feedback on this, okay? This is just 1 year ago. So our top scorer from last year comes actually from the Bobcats at from the Flight at 37.1 points a game. The top rebounder comes from the Crocs at 17.7 per game, and our top assist man comes from the Tide at 6.5 per game. What you don't see on this are Pride team members at the top of the statistical categories. Now they hover very well within the top 20 of each category, but what this means to me is that they do everything really well, and they don't just do one thing great. And I want your feedback on that, Gabriel.
That's a great point. And I apologize for getting a little sappy here. I love a lunch pail team. I grew up in the Midwest on a farm. I love a good lunch pail team. And that's what we're looking at. These are folks that go to work every day and work a regular job, and they're playing professional basketball on the side. And they're working really hard to develop those skill sets. To be able to win in a league like that, you can't have a LeBron James. LeBron James is not going to sell cars during the day or clean the floors or work at the shop and then go win basketball games by scoring 50 points at night in the FBA. You've got great teammates and great leaders who understand how to share the ball and shoot it when the time is right. That's how you win games in the FBA.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I agree with you. I'm a Midwest guy myself. I like to see teams that, play as a unit and, you don't have to have, and I'm also a giant LeBron fan. So I'm kind of contradictory to myself here, but you don't have to have one superstar to win, right? You just have to have many pieces that fit together like a well-oiled machine. But it's just fun to look at, how a league like this, the FBA, even the NBA, when you see one team overtake a statistical category or many statistical categories, typically that team doesn't end up going far in the playoffs. Now, sometimes obviously there's those anomalies that it happens, but I'm a stat junkie. I'm a sports junkie. I pay attention to this stuff. And a lot of times, unless you're Michael Jordan on the Bulls, when you're winning 10 scoring titles, this doesn't happen. So it's nice to see that in the FBA, there is a wide variety and a wide spread of, I'm looking at the top 5 lists right now of all these categories, and it's different teams. Okay. It's guys from different teams in the top 5. And the one consistent thing I see is that the Pride is not in the top 5. They're not even in the top 10, a lot of these. And that's surprising. But they hover around the middle of these categories. They play well. They play together. And obviously, we're seeing early going, that they're 4-1 and they're out to a really good start. But, all that being said, playing as a lunch pail team can be great, but it can also be very difficult. So I want to look at the Pride as a team again. We're talking about how well they play together. How hard do you think it's going to be for them, Gabriel, to sustain this throughout the season, which is going to go through the next few months here? So we are in the early part, folks. We do have a lot of games to remain. So for a team that plays, we'll call it scrappy, and they play very well, very team-oriented basketball, do you think this is going to be something they're able to sustain as they keep winning, or is there going to be, the potential for an ego fallout type of thing?
Well, I'd love to hear the fans' feedback on this too. Feel free to tweet that at us and let us know what you think after the show is over. But just my thought, and I hope that the Pride don't get mad at me for this, that is something that's really hard to sustain night in and night out. Again, Lunch Pail League, these folks are working during the day and playing basketball at night. At some point, someone's going to be tired. Life is going to happen. Someone's not going to make it to a game or miss a practice, and that's going to affect the way you play on the hardwood. That's what you're looking at. You're not going to be able to keep that consistent 100% of the time. But the more they can keep that consistency throughout the course of the season, the more they can stay on track, the better chance they have to do that throughout the playoffs.
Absolutely. And, we keep mentioning this lunch pail team, and we forget to give kudos to one of the biggest players of the FBA. And I don't mean player as in player on a team, but Commissioner Greg Kite. Greg Kite was a lunch pail guy in the NBA. Greg Kite was a star out of Brigham Young in 1983, got drafted in the first round. Okay. He played 13 years in the NBA for the Magic and the Celtics, won 2 rings, was kind of like just a roster guy, right? Like he wasn't, he was on the team with Bird, McHale, Parrish, guys like that in the late 80s, but he wasn't the guy. He was a lunch pail guy that carved out a 13-year career, won 2 rings. That's not something that a lot of us can say, right? So I think this league really follows the mold of his career in basketball. And, kudos to you, Commissioner Kite, for, giving these guys an opportunity, the same opportunity that you had, to chase the dream of playing in the league or playing in some sort of professional setting, taking home a championship, living out the dream that we all have when we're kids. So any thoughts on that from you, Gabriel?
I love that parallel. I think parallels like that are great to draw and to show the existence of a league like this and why fans should be invested in this type of pursuit. These franchises are what sports are all about. And, it's a great thing for fans to be able to rally around teams like this. And this is right in Florida. You can drive down and get tickets, and you're not going to pay $800 to sit courtside. That's great. You can't beat it. You love to see that.
Yep. And one thing we forgot to mention, too, is this is actually a developmental league for folks like referees as well. So we have people in this FBA, not only from the player standpoint, but from the referee and the officiating standpoint, who are trying to get their next step too. And, that's something that I don't take for granted. Someone who played collegiate athletics at the Division III level, like I got my shot. I'm grateful for it. So hopefully these men and women that are involved in this league understand, like, this is a really big opportunity. And I'm going to get sappy. You got sappy earlier, so it's my turn. But this is a really big opportunity for you to continue that dream in this game of basketball. No matter what side of the coin you sit on, whether it's officiating, playing, front office, owning. We obviously wish you the best of luck. It's been really fun to watch so far. And that's a good segue into our next point here so far, right? So let's talk about this season. I want to talk about a highlight here, Gabriel, and I want your feedback on it. So I want to talk about this highlight of the Flight getting their first win. Okay, they got their first win, 134 to 127, in an overtime thriller against the Storm. Any thoughts on that game from you?
It was an unbelievable contest. Two buzzer beaters, if I'm not mistaken, and it was just a blast from start to finish. And I thought the broadcast crew brought it to life. It was a lot of fun to watch the game.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned the two buzzer beaters, and actually, I think if I'm not mistaken, both of them made by one guy.
Yes,
That's a rarity. Okay. So
Okay.
again, when these fans in Florida, in the state of Florida, get to go to these games, they're getting to see quality basketball. So we saw in this game a 24-point lead evaporate late in the fourth quarter. That is something that we see obviously at the major basketball level as well, in the NBA, in Division I college basketball. So if you're the opposing team and you're down 24 and you make this outrageous comeback, what's your mentality going into overtime if you're the coach of this team?
You can't lose, and you got to take risks, and you got to go for it. That's my mentality as a coach. I've always said during broadcast, I'm not a coach, and that's why I don't make those decisions. I don't want to have to make those decisions. But if I was the coach, that's the decision I'm making. Foot to the gas. Let's go for it.
Yeah, and I think if you're the team that has that lead too, you have to have that same mentality. It has to be the same mentality from both sides. If you have this 24-point lead, I know there's sportsmanship and all this stuff, and you don't want to run up the score, but you also don't want complacency to set in. And I think what we saw is a little bit of complacency set in, right? Now we saw in this game, excuse me. So Ulrich Paul tied the game with a three-pointer. Sorry, I'm a little mush mouth right now. With just over 2 minutes to go in the game. Okay. Less than a minute to go. The Storm's Chris Williams puts up a three right in. And then we see 113 to 113 with just under 6 seconds left. Walk me through what happened in those last 6 seconds.
I mean, that's what the FBA is all about. Great play. It was unbelievable. It was an electric moment. And I just want to see it. You're getting me excited again.
Well, what we saw happen here was in those last 6 seconds, okay? So we had excuse me, we had a three-pointer by Aaron Taylor, okay? 116 to 113, put the Storm up, 0.4 seconds left on the clock. And then our guy, Grant Galley, puts up a three with 0.4 seconds left to go into overtime. Now, that's some late game heroics. I don't care if you're in the NBA or if you're in elementary school basketball. That feeling has to be absolutely euphoric for anyone to feel. If you're gonna be Grant's coach right now. So he comes off, hits that absolutely bone-chilling three-pointer to send the game into overtime. We already talked about you got to keep your foot on the gas, right? Walk me through what your conversation would be like with these guys, setting up your plays for overtime, talking about, again, we mentioned the conditioning, we mentioned minutes, we mentioned, mindset. How are you going to walk into that huddle, Gabriel?
Well, I think, and especially at the professional level, but I think even at the high school level, we're used to seeing movies where coaches yell or they say something really inspiring. But in reality, a lot of times it's very clinical. And coach pulls out a whiteboard and he says, hey, guys, you're doing this very, very well. Continue to do that. This is not going well. Let's make this one change. And then you come with an inspirational note. That was unbelievable. What a moment for us. You've got the green light. Go do it again. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, and then in this overtime period, we saw, we saw a lot of scoring. I think this made, again, it gave the fans just a fantastic experience. So we went into overtime at 116 all. We ended the game at 134, 127. Okay, so we saw 29 points scored in this overtime period, which is a lot. Again, that doesn't always happen in an NBA overtime game. So, the Flight ended up pulling out the overtime win. Pulling off a 7-point victory. So, they make this miraculous comeback. Galley hits the three at the end of regulation. Absolute euphoria hits again when they wind the clock down in overtime. There can't be a better feeling. No. You know what I mean? It's these guys get their first win of the year. Again, Chris Berman, they're off the schneid. They have momentum. Okay, so we're in this developmental league where you're playing against. I love what you said about the equal competitions. You're in competition with other guys that are on your level. So, and you're trying to get better. You're trying to prove yourself. Yes, it's only one win, but it means a lot. You and I we've talked about how we would approach mentally coming out of this game and coming into this game physically. Okay. This is draining. We're talking about adrenaline levels spiking, dopamine levels spiking. We're talking about playing a lot of minutes. Your legs are tired. What do you think the flight coach is going to do post game to prepare them for next week physically, to make sure that they don't tire out and make sure that they have enough, to continue this winning ways?
You got to tell them to go home, get rest, get Gatorade. Don't celebrate too much is the key. And I wonder if they were able to do that. They played yesterday against the Florida Blazers, fell 127-92. So you like to think that's a fluke after an incredible win like that in overtime, and they've had so much historical success in the FBA. But that's all I can think is, you tell the guys to get rest. You tell them to think about what they did well and say, continue to do that throughout this week. What did we do well in practice last week? We've got to keep doing that. You're muted, Andy.
I apologize for that, folks, but that speaks to, athletics in general. So the flight, they're down 24 points in the game that they just came back and won. They lose a heartbreaker by 25 points the next week. So, we're talking a lot about equal. We're talking equal highs, equal lows. So if I, if I am on the flight, if I'm Grant Galay's teammate, or if I am on the coaching staff, or if I'm ownership, I want to figure out, again, consistency. Consistency to me is what's going to make this league and a team from this league supplant themselves at the top. Okay. Coming into next week, this coming week, what do you feel like is going to be the best opportunity, or the best game, that we're going to be looking at going forward after these two really, really good games that we've talked about? One absolutely incredible comeback win. The other one was unfortunately a blowout. But again, you get quality entertainment. So going forward, what are you looking to see from these guys on the flight?
The flight have had so much success this season, even though the win column isn't that heavy for them. I think they've just got to talk about what went well in that overtime win. And if you can pull out a win like that, you can do it week in and week out. Again, the consistency is the key. It's going to remain the key for them and every team in this league. And it's going to sound like we're hammering that home, Andy, but it really is very, very important for these teams to find a beat, find their rhythm, and stick with it. That's what the flight need to do. They clearly have the talent. They clearly have the ability. They clearly have the coaching staff. They know what they need to do to win. They just got to find that groove and stay in it. Yeah,
absolutely. Let's shift gears real quick. So we have a little bit of news coming from the FBA. Okay. So we have an expansion team coming in the 2023 FBA season. Okay. We have a team coming in Miami. I believe they're coming to Miami. If I remember right. Yes, Miami. My notes are correct. So they are being brought to us by TFT, which is the Fans Together. It's a decentralized, autonomous organization that gives fans an ownership stake in professional sports teams throughout the world. So what we're seeing here is obviously enough success from the FBA to be able to make expansion, to bring more teams, bring more players, bring more referees, bring more opportunities. How excited are you for this, Gabriel? To me, again, it just speaks to the volumes of giving people a chance and giving people the opportunity to pursue a dream, whether it's refereeing, playing, coaching, front office. I would love your thoughts on this.
Well, I think Kite and the Florida Basketball Association, they've got big eyes, and they see a big, bright future, and that future could be bigger than Florida. But right now it's Florida, and right now it's going to be the best basketball you can get in the state of Florida outside of maybe Division I basketball and the NBA.
Yeah.
And they're taking a lot of steps to do that. Not only have they added an expansion team, they've brought in a former NBA player and coach Sam Vincent as the league's first ever chief advisor for global development. He's the head coach of the men's national team for Bahrain right now, and he's hoping to help these FBA franchises compete on a national and international stage. And I think they'll be able to do that, especially with the quality of play that they have.
Yep, I agree. And I want to read you a quote here, and this is coming from Simon Wentworth, who is the TFT director. Simon says, "This is our first foray into the United States, and we believe American fans will love it just as much as their European counterparts. We give sports fans the opportunity to engage with TFT-owned sports franchises worldwide and even possess actual decision-making capabilities. We chose the FBA to be our first United States purchase because of the league's longevity and quality of play, and what better place to have a team in beautiful South Florida. This is a wonderful new addition to our portfolio. We're grateful to Mark King, who is the FBA owner, and obviously Commissioner Kite, for seeing our vision and selecting us." So this proves that they have a lot of logic behind expanding, for the FBA side, and then bringing in TFT to head up this team. What it's also sounding like is they're taking a little bit of like the fan-controlled football league, where they're giving people an opportunity to have a say, which again is very cool. So what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on the direction that you see Wentworth and this TFT organization, bringing into the FBA? And do you have any insight and thoughts? And I know we don't actually have any research on this, but do you have any thoughts on what this could mean for the future of this league?
Well, I think the future of this league is looking bright because I see them putting all the right things in place. Even this show right here, but having a broadcast crew to carry all your games, creating content. You've heard this phrase a million times by now, I'm sure. Content is king. And this league understands that. They understand business and how to expand. I think the fan-owned thing is the future. I know it's a little early to say that, but we've seen this trend where getting people involved is more and more important in our digital age, and there's more and more ways than ever to do that. People want to feel like they have a say. People want to feel like they're part of the inside circle, part of the clique, and that gives them an opportunity to do that. I think franchises that move in that direction, leagues that move in that direction, and this business itself are very bright, and I think they're on the right track with that. I mean, it gets me excited. I want to own part of a team.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, so I'm a Chicago guy, and I'm a shareholder in the Green Bay Packers. So like my owning of a team is skewed. It just is what it is. But yeah, I think it's a great opportunity. I think, I've had on my own personal show, I've had the opportunity to have a lot of professional athletes on, and one thing we talk about is the evolution and adaptation of these leagues. Right? As society, social media, people in general, as we all evolve, the leagues need to continue to evolve, because the generation that is coming up, these young kids, are going to be different than we were, and they're going to be different than the young kids that are here right now. So we have to continue to be aware of the things that are going to keep people captivated in these sports, in these leagues. So again, great move by the FBA. I hope that it proves to come to fruition. I think you mentioned it earlier, about expanding outside of Florida. It sounds like they may be even looking to expand outside of the United States. Commissioner Kite, I think you're on the right track. We would love to have you on the show to pick your brain on this as well. What we're going to do right now, though, we got about a minute and a half left, Gabe. Let's talk playoffs. Okay, let's give a little prediction. Let's give the fans something to think about, okay? Where do you see the top 3 teams lining up going into the playoff season of the FBA?
Well, we talked about it a little bit at the beginning of the show, so let's harken back to that and the Pride. They've been so successful so far this season. I think they're the one to watch. The Royals and the Titans are right there with them, but there's just something I like about the Pride, and it's the way they share the ball on the floor, and it's the way that they shoot inside and outside. There's just something about their overall game that's so consistent. And I know we talked about that for the first 10 minutes of the show, but that's all there is to it. Sometimes it's simple like that. I really think the consistency is going to be key. I think they've got it going on. I think they share the ball well, and that's why they're going to be successful, and they're my pick to watch.
I like it. I mean, I obviously can't argue with it right now. I am actually going to pick the Palm Beach Titans to be sitting up, atop the FBA come the playoff time. I think the Pride will still be there, and I'm not going to count out one of these teams in the bottom. And here's why. I think the Flight are going to make a run because I think what's going to happen is they're going to look back on this game that they had against the Storm. They're going to see that, a deficit is not impossible to overcome, and that's going to give them confidence. So I'm going to look at the Titans, the Pride, and the Flight to sit atop. Either way, I know it's going to be a great season here in the FBA. What we're going to do now, though, Gabriel, is send our closing thoughts. Thank you to everybody watching FBA Weekly. Gabriel, I'd love to give you the floor here for about 15 seconds before we wrap.
Hey, I'm excited about the FBA. I'm excited about this show. Can't wait to see you folks all again next time.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. Again, this is FBA Weekly presented by Belly Up Sports Media. My name is Andy Sire. That is Gabriel Schrei. We are going to be here with you weekly to bring you basketball, to talk the state of Florida, hopefully entertain you folks a little bit, maybe educate you a little bit too. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.